Can't wait to see you again tomorrow. Last time was incredible. I wouldn't have looked if Grace hadn't said, Dad, Mom's getting a lot of messages. The screen kept lighting up with notifications from someone saved as TS, tutorial. My hands trembled as I picked up the device. The messages were right there, the latest conversation with this TS displayed clearly on the screen. I felt the blood drain from my face as I scrolled up through weeks of exchanges between my wife of 16 years and someone whose messages carried an unmistakable youthful energy. Grace, honey, I managed to say, keeping my voice steady, would you mind finishing up dinner? I need to make a quick call. She nodded, taking the wooden spoon from my shaking hand. I walked to my home office, closed the door, and sank into my chair. The messages painted a vivid picture I couldn't unsee. Amanda, my wife, my best friend since college, was having an affair with someone who appeared to be one of her students. The timestamps aligned perfectly with her faculty meetings and curriculum planning sessions. Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, sometimes Friday evenings. I thought of all the times ID picked up her slack at home, proud to support my dedicated teacher wife who spent so many extra hours helping struggling students. My phone buzzed, Amanda. Running a bit late, love. The faculty meeting is going longer than expected. Don't wait up for dinner. I stared at her message, my throat tight with rage and disbelief. 16 years of marriage, countless memories, shared dreams, our beautiful daughter, all of it suddenly felt like an elaborate lie. I texted back, come home now. We need to talk. Her response came quickly, everything okay? No. Come home immediately. 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before she replied, on my way. I returned to the kitchen where Grace was stirring the pasta sauce. She looked up, concerned. Dad, you okay? You look really pale. Just a work thing, sweetheart. The lie tasted bitter. Hey, would you mind having dinner in your room tonight? I need to discuss something important with your mom. Grace's forehead wrinkled with worry, but she nodded. She was always so perceptive, our daughter. Sometimes I wondered if she noticed more than she let on. The next 45 minutes were the longest of my life. I sat at our kitchen table, Amanda's iPad in front of me, reading and rereading the messages. Each one felt like a fresh stab to the heart. The casual intimacy, the inside jokes, the plans they made, all while I was here, being the supportive husband, the dedicated father. When I heard Amanda's car pull into the driveway, I forced myself to remain seated. The garage door opened and closed. Keys jingled. Her heels clicked on the hardwood floor. Jacob. She called out, her voice carrying the familiar warmth that I once found so comforting. What's wrong? You scared me with those texts. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, still in her teaching clothes, a modest blue dress and cardigan. Her dark hair was slightly disheveled, and her cheeks were flushed. I wondered if she had rushed home from another location entirely. The moment she saw her iPad on the table in front of me, her face changed. It was subtle, a slight widening of the eyes, a quick intake of breath, but I'd known her for nearly 2 decades. I could read her tells. Who's TS? I asked, my voice surprisingly calm. She blinked rapidly, her hand clutching her purse strap. What? TS tutorial, I clarified, turning the iPad screen toward her. The person you've been messaging. The one you can't wait to see tomorrow. Amanda's face drained of color. She took a step backward, her shoulder hitting the doorframe. Jacob, I can explain. Is it Tyler Sanders? I interrupted. The name came to me suddenly, a student she had mentioned several times over the past few months, always in the context of tutoring and academic support. Your student. Her silence was all the confirmation I needed. The room started spinning, and I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. How long? I demanded. Jacob, please. How long? The words exploded from me, echoing off the kitchen walls. Upstairs, I heard Grace's door open slightly. Mom. Grace called down. Dad. Is everything okay? Amanda's eyes darted toward the stairs, panic written across her face. Everything's fine, sweetie, she called back, her voice shaking. Just a discussion about work. Please stay upstairs. I waited until I heard Grace's door close again before speaking, my voice lowered but intense. You're having an affair with a student. A child. He's 17, Amanda whispered, as if that made it better. It's not what you think. Not what I think. I laughed, a harsh, broken sound. I've read the messages, Amanda. All of them. The ones about your special meetings. The ones about how much you miss each other. The ones planning your next. I couldn't even finish the sentence. She moved toward me, hands outstretched pleadingly. Jacob, I made a terrible mistake. I know that. But please, we need to handle this carefully. If this gets out, my career. Your career? I stood up so quickly my chair toppled backward. You're worried about your career. What about our marriage? What about our daughter? Please keep your voice down, she begged, glancing toward the stairs again. We can work through this. We can get counseling. It'll end it immediately, I promise. But no one can know about this. Think about what it would do to Grace if this became public. I stared at her, this woman I thought I knew better than anyone else in the world. In her eyes, I saw fear, but not remorse, not really. She was afraid of the consequences, not of losing me. I think you should leave, I said quietly. What? Pack a bag and leave. Go to your sister's, a hotel, I don't care. But I can't look at you right now without wanting to scream, and our daughter is upstairs. You can't just throw me out, she protested. This is my house too. We need to talk about this rationally. Rationally. I picked up her iPad and held it up. Would you like me to read these messages out loud? Would that make for a rational discussion? She flinched. Give me my iPad. Oh, I don't think so. This is evidence. Evidence? Her voice rose slightly. Evidence of what? Of your affair with a minor. Of your breach of professional ethics. Of every lie you've told me and our daughter over the past. I paused. How long, Amanda? You still haven't answered that question. She wrapped her arms around herself, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. 3 months. 3 months. I thought back to our anniversary dinner 2 months ago. The family vacation we'd planned for summer. All while she was. I felt bile rise in my throat. Get out, I repeated. Now. Before I do something we'll both regret, like calling the school board. Or Tyler's parents. That threat finally moved her. She hurried upstairs, and I heard her moving around in our bedroom. I remained in the kitchen, my hands pressed flat against the cool surface of the table, trying to steady my breathing. 10 minutes later, she came down with an overnight bag. She paused in the kitchen doorway, tears streaming down her face. Jacob, please. We can fix this. 16 years of marriage. Get out. She took a step toward me. At least let me say goodnight to Grace. No. My voice was steel. You don't get to pretend everything's normal with our daughter right now. I'll talk to her. You need to leave. For a moment, I thought she would argue further. But something in my expression must have convinced her. She turned and walked to the front door. Just before leaving, she looked back. I love you, she whispered. I didn't respond. The door closed behind her with a soft click that seemed to echo through the house. I waited until I heard her car start and pull away before I finally allowed my legs to give out. I slid down to the kitchen floor, my back against the cabinets, and buried my face in my hands. Upstairs, I heard Grace's door open again. Her soft footsteps descended the stairs. I quickly wiped my eyes and stood up, trying to compose myself. How was I going to explain this to our daughter? What could I possibly say that wouldn't shatter her world the way mine had just been shattered? Dad. Her voice was small, uncertain. She stood in the doorway where her mother had been just minutes before. Why did Mom leave? I heard yelling. I looked at my daughter, this beautiful, innocent girl who deserved so much better than what was about to happen to her life. In that moment, I made a decision. I couldn't protect her from the truth forever, but tonight, she needed her father to be strong. Come here, sweetheart, I said, opening my arms. She rushed into them, and I held her tight, remembering all the times I'd comforted her after nightmares when she was little. But this nightmare was real, and I couldn't wake us up from it. Everything's going to be okay, I lied, stroking her hair. We're going to be okay. But as I held my daughter, my mind was already racing. Amanda thought she could just walk away from this, protect her career, pretend it never happened. She thought wrong. Tomorrow, I would start making calls, to lawyers, to private investigators, to the school board. She had destroyed our family. Now she would face the consequences. I just had to figure out how to do it without destroying our daughter in the process. As Grace's tears soaked into my shirt, I glanced at the iPad still sitting on the kitchen table. Evidence, I'd called it. But it was more than that. It was the first piece in what would become my systematic dismantling of Amanda Walker's carefully constructed life. She wanted to protect her career. Her reputation. By the time I was done, she wouldn't have either. The thought should have frightened me, this cold, calculating anger so foreign to my nature. Instead, it gave me focus. Purpose. Something to hold onto as my world crumbled around me. Dad. Grace's voice was muffled against my chest. Is Mom coming back? I closed my eyes, remembering Amanda's parting words. 16 years of marriage. 3 months of betrayal. 1 moment to decide how much truth my daughter could handle. I don't know, sweetheart, I said finally. I honestly don't know. But I did know. Amanda would come back, not tonight, but soon. She would come back with apologies and explanations and promises to change. She would beg for forgiveness, for discretion, for a second chance. And I would be ready. The pasta sauce Grace had been stirring was burning on the stove, filling the kitchen with the acrid smell of scorched tomatoes. Like everything else in my life, dinner was ruined. But as I held my daughter and listened to the slow tick of the kitchen clock, I was already planning. Tomorrow would be soon enough to start the war. Tonight, I needed to be a father. Tomorrow, I could be the husband who discovered his wife's betrayal. The man who would make sure Amanda Walker regretted every secret meeting, every lie, every moment she thought she could have it all without consequences. The morning after Amanda left, I woke up to 27 missed calls and a string of desperate text messages. I ignored them all and called in sick to work. Grace needed me more than my office did. I was making breakfast when my phone buzzed with a new message. This time, it wasn't from Amanda. Mr. Walker, we should talk. Your wife and I have something special. Don't ruin her life over this. My coffee mug shattered against the kitchen wall before I even realized I'd thrown it. The message was from a number I didn't recognize, but I knew exactly who it was. Tyler Sanders, the 17-year-old who destroyed my family, was texting me about my wife. I was still staring at the phone when Grace came downstairs, already dressed for school. She looked at the broken mug and coffee dripping down the wall, then at my face. I'm not going to school today, she announced quietly. I can't. I nodded, understanding completely. I'll call you in sick. Is Mom? She couldn't finish the question. She's staying at Aunt Sarah's for now, I lied, having no idea where Amanda had actually gone. We need some time to figure things out. Grace picked up a piece of the broken mug, turning it over in her hands. Dad, there's something I need to tell you. About Mom and Tyler. My heart stopped. What do you mean? I saw them once, she whispered, not meeting my eyes. At the mall, about a month ago. They didn't see me. I was with Jenny, shopping for her birthday. They were at the coffee shop, and they were. She swallowed hard. They were holding hands under the table. I told myself I was imagining things. That maybe it wasn't even Mom, just someone who looked like her. But last night, when I heard you fighting. The piece of mug in her hand dropped to the floor, breaking into even smaller fragments. A perfect metaphor for our family. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, trying to keep the accusation out of my voice. Because Tyler's in my grade, she said, and my world tilted sideways again. He's in my AP history class. He sits 2 rows behind me every day, Dad. How am I supposed to go back there now? The room started spinning. Tyler wasn't just Amanda's student, he was Grace's classmate. The betrayal had literally been sitting 2 rows behind my daughter every day. "We're moving you to a different school," I said immediately. "Today. I'll make the calls." "No." Grace's voice was sharp. "I'm not letting them win. I'm not letting them destroy everything. I need a few days to process." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. When had she grown so strong? So mature? And how had Amanda and I missed it, wrapped up in our own lives? "Okay," I said finally. "A few days. But then we need to make some decisions." Grace nodded, then surprised me by pulling out her phone and placing it on the counter. "I recorded them," she said quietly. "That day at the mall. I was so confused, so scared I was imagining things. I took a video. Just a few seconds. I never watched it again, but I couldn't delete it either." My hands shook as I picked up her phone. The video was short, just 15 seconds, but it was undeniable. Amanda and Tyler, sitting close in a corner booth at Starbucks, their heads bent together intimately. His hand covering hers on the table. The timestamp showed it was exactly 1 month ago, the same day Amanda and I had gone to dinner to celebrate her getting Teacher of the Year. "I'm so sorry, Dad," Grace whispered. "I should have told you." I pulled her into a hug. "No, sweetheart. None of this is your fault. None of it." As I held my daughter, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Tyler: "I love her. She loves me. Don't make this ugly." I felt something dark and cold settle in my chest. This boy, this child who sat behind my daughter in class, thought he could threaten me. Try to stake his claim on my wife. I was about to delete the message when another text came through, this one from an unknown number. "Mr. Walker, my name is Lisa Sanders. I'm Tyler's mother. We need to talk. Now." And just like that, the game changed. I asked our neighbor, Mrs. Chen, to stay with Grace, and drove to the address Lisa Sanders provided. It was a modest house in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place where people raised families and built futures. The kind of place where affairs with married teachers weren't supposed to happen. Lisa Sanders opened the door before I could knock. She was a petite woman with Tyler's dark hair and a haunted look in her eyes. "Thank you for coming," she said, leading me into a living room cluttered with family photos. "There's something you need to see." She handed me a manila envelope. Inside were printouts of text messages, emails, and photos, dozens of them. But these weren't between Amanda and Tyler. They were between Amanda and Lisa's husband, David Sanders. Tyler's father. "It started last year," Lisa said quietly. "The affair with David, I mean. I found out 3 months ago. When I confronted them, Amanda broke it off. A week later, she started sleeping with my son." The room tilted dangerously. I grabbed the edge of the couch to steady myself. "She's systematically destroying my family," Lisa continued, her voice breaking. "First my husband, now my son. David's moved out. Tyler's talking about running away with her after graduation. I didn't know who else to turn to." I looked down at the evidence in my hands. The timestamps told a story even more twisted than I'd imagined. Amanda hadn't just had an affair with a student, she had had an affair with his father first, then moved on to the son when that fell apart. "Why are you showing me this?" I managed to ask. "Because I want to destroy her," Lisa said simply. "And I think you do too." I stared at this woman who had suffered a betrayal even more complex than my own. "What do you have in mind?" "The school board meeting is tonight," she said. "They're voting on Teacher of the Year awards. Amanda's supposed to give a speech. Everyone will be there, the board, the faculty, the local press. And you want to expose everything?" She nodded. "All of it. David and Tyler. Let everyone see exactly who Amanda Walker really is." I thought about Grace, about how this would affect her. But then I remembered her video, the way she had carried that burden alone for a month. The way Amanda had forced our daughter to keep her secrets. "I'm in," I said. "But we do this my way. Calculated. Precise. No room for denial or spinning the story." Lisa smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I was hoping you'd say that. Because there's one more thing you need to know. She walked to a desk in the corner and pulled out another envelope. This one contained a single document, a paternity test. I had David tested when I found out about the affair with Amanda, Lisa explained. He's not Tyler's biological father. The timing. Mr. Walker, I think you should get a DNA test for Grace. The world didn't just tilt this time, it shattered completely. I made it to Lisa's bathroom just in time to throw up everything in my stomach. When I emerged, shaking and pale, she was waiting with a glass of water and a determined look. The board meeting starts at 7, she said. Are you ready to burn Amanda's world to the ground? I took the water, my mind racing. Grace's words from this morning echoed in my head, I'm not letting them win. I'm not letting them destroy everything. My daughter was stronger than both her parents combined. Whatever we discovered about her paternity wouldn't change that. She was mine, DNA be damned. 7 o'clock, I agreed, pulling out my phone. But first, I need to make a few calls. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. I had 5 hours to prepare the destruction of Amanda Walker's carefully constructed life. 5 hours to gather every piece of evidence, every witness, every painful truth shed buried. 5 hours until the woman I'd loved for 16 years learned exactly what it meant to lose everything. As I left Lisa's house, my phone buzzed one final time. A message from Tyler, she's leaving you anyway. Just let her go. I smiled for the first time in 24 hours. Oh, she was leaving all right. But not the way she and Tyler had planned. Not the way any of them had planned. The school board meeting would be a night no one in our town would ever forget. And Amanda? Amanda would learn that karma isn't just a concept, sometimes it comes in the form of a husband and a mistress wife with nothing left to lose. I pulled into my driveway, my mind already mapping out the evening ahead. Grace was in her room, safe with Mrs. Chen. Amanda was somewhere plotting her next move, unaware that her carefully constructed house of lies was about to collapse. At 6:15 p.m., as I was preparing to leave for the school board meeting, Grace came running into my home office, her face pale. Dad, you need to see this. Now. She thrust her phone at me. On the screen was a live stream from the local news, breaking news, hostage situation at Riverside High School board meeting. The camera showed police cars surrounding the school building. The reporter's voice was tense. We're receiving reports that David Sanders, local businessman and father of a student, has entered the building armed. Sources say he's demanding to speak with teacher Amanda Walker. My blood ran cold. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. Grace, stay here. Lock all the doors. Don't open them for anyone. I grabbed my keys, but she caught my arm. Dad, wait. There's more. She switched to her social media feed. Someone inside was live streaming. The school board members were huddled at one end of the room. And there, in the center, stood Amanda, facing David Sanders. You ruined everything, David's voice cracked through the phone speakers. My marriage, my son, my life. David, please, Amanda's voice was steady, teacher calm. Think about Tyler. Tyler. David laughed, a horrible broken sound. Our son, Amanda. Our biological son. The live stream exploded with comments. My phone started buzzing with messages. But all I could focus on was Grace's face as she processed what she'd just heard. Grace. I started, but she cut me off. Go, she said firmly. Mom needs you. She's not. She's still my mother, Grace said. And you're still my dad. DNA doesn't change that. Now go. I broke every speed limit getting to the school. The police had established a perimeter, but I pushed through, showing my ID. My wife's in there. A detective pulled me aside. Mr. Walker. I'm Detective Chen. We've been briefed on the situation. Mrs. Sanders told us everything. Lisa appeared beside him, her face drawn. I'm so sorry, Jacob. When David saw the evidence ID gathered, he just snapped. This isn't what I wanted. What does he want? To tell the truth, Lisa said quietly. All of it. He's live streaming everything. Inside the boardroom, David was still talking. His voice echoed through the school's PA system, broadcasting to the growing crowd outside. 16 years ago, his voice crackled, Amanda and I had an affair. She got pregnant. She married Jacob Walker, letting him believe the baby was his. Then last year, she came back into my life, seduced me, destroyed my marriage. And when that wasn't enough, she went after our son, her own biological child. The crowd outside gasped. Phones recorded everything. This would be all over social media in minutes. Mr. Walker, Detective Chen said, we need you to talk to him. He might listen to you. Why would he listen to me? Because you're the only other person who understands what she's done. They fitted me with a vest and an earpiece. As I approached the boardroom doors, Lisa caught my arm. Jacob, there's something else you need to know. About Grace. I don't want to hear it. You do, she insisted. The DNA test I showed you. It was fake. I made it to hurt Amanda. Grace is yours. I'm so sorry, this all spiraled out of control. I stared at her for a long moment, then turned and pushed through the doors. The boardroom fell silent as I entered. David stood in the center, a gun pointed at the floor. Amanda was 10 feet away, her face a mask of composure, but I could see her hands shaking. David, I said calmly, we need to talk. He turned, eyes wild. Did you hear? Did you hear what she did? I heard, I said, moving slowly closer. And I understand. But this isn't the way. She deserves to suffer. Look around you, I gestured to the phones recording everything. She is suffering. Everyone knows now. Her career is over. Her reputation is destroyed. But if you do this, Tyler loses both his parents. Is that what you want? David's hand trembled. Tyler, he's my son. My biological son. And she made him fall in love with her, I finished. Yes. She's very good at that. But he's still your son, David. And he needs his father. Jacob, Amanda spoke for the first time. I can explain. No, I cut her off. No more explanations. No more lies. It's over, Amanda. All of it. She fell silent, tears finally breaking through her composure. David, I continued, give me the gun. Let's end this the right way. For Tyler. For all our children. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, David lowered the weapon. I stepped forward and took it, handing it to the SWAT team that had entered behind me. As they led David away, Amanda approached me. Jacob, please. Grace is my daughter, I said firmly. In every way that matters. And you've lost the right to be her mother. You can't keep her from me. Watch me. I turned to the school board members, still huddled at their table. I have evidence of Amanda's affairs with both David and Tyler Sanders. Messages, photos, witness statements. I'm filing for divorce and full custody. And I expect the board will want to review Mrs. Walker's teaching license. The board chairman nodded gravely. Amanda's shoulders slumped as reality finally hit her. Outside, the crowd parted as I walked to my car. Phones recorded my every move, but I didn't care. My phone buzzed, a message from Grace. I saw everything on the live stream. I'm proud of you, Dad. That night, as Grace and I sat in our kitchen eating takeout, she asked, what happens now? I looked at my daughter, no matter what biology said, and saw strength I'd never noticed before. Now we heal. Together. And Mom. She'll have to find her own way to heal. Grace nodded, then surprised me by saying, I deleted the video from the mall. And all my old photos with Tyler. I don't want those memories anymore. You're stronger than both your parents combined, I told her. She smiled sadly. I had a good teacher. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Amanda, I never deserved either of you. For once, she was telling the truth. Epilogue. 6 months later, I sat in a courtroom as the judge granted me full custody of Grace. Amanda had moved to another state, her teaching license revoked. David Sanders was serving time for the hostage incident, but receiving therapy. Tyler had transferred schools and was living with his mother, Lisa, who had become an unexpected friend through all of this. And Grace. She was thriving. She'd started a support group at her school for children of broken families. Sometimes, she told me, the strongest families are the ones we rebuild from the ashes. As we left the courthouse that day, Grace linked her arm through mine. Dad. Thank you for not giving up on us. I hugged my daughter close. Never, sweetheart. Some bonds can't be broken, not by lies, not by betrayal, not even by DNA. Do you think you'll ever forgive Mom? She asked quietly. I thought about it carefully. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting, Grace. It's about choosing to move forward. Your mom made her choices. We're making ours. Grace nodded, understanding in her eyes that seemed far too wise for her 15 years. Forward, she agreed. As we walked to the car, my phone lit up with a text from Lisa, coffee next week. The support group meets Thursdays. I smiled, showing the message to Grace. She grinned back. You should go, Dad. Moving forward, remember. Forward, I agreed, starting the car. The truth about Amanda's betrayal had come out differently than I'd planned. The revenge I'd sought had taken its own path. But standing in that boardroom, choosing peace over vengeance, I'd found something better than revenge. I'd found healing. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about rebuilding yourself stronger than before.